grade honor student is an athlete who's taking drugs to keep the HIV in check. Here's what he told Philadelphia's WCAU. Watch.
What they did was wrong. They put me through emotional distress. I feel that no other teenager should go through this, being denied just because they have HIV.
But the school is not backing down from its controversial decision to deny him admission. Listen to this spokesperson from Milton Hershey School.
We have to balance our desire to serve this individual with our obligation to protect the health and safety of the 1,850 students already in our care.
And this week, the AIDS Law Project of Pennsylvania filed suit on behalf of the student, claiming the school is violating the Americans with Disabilities Act. My guest, Rhonda Goldfein, attorney representing the student in that suit. She is executive director of AIDS Law Project of Pennsylvania. Tom Duane is a New York State senator. He's the first senator to be open about his HIV status. Tom, this story must hit especially close home for you.
It certainly does, Dr. Drew. I'm just horrified, but unfortunately not surprised. There's still terrible stigma and discrimination and ignorance about HIV and how it is spread. And I think about that school and what must be going on there. There are only 4 ways that HIV can be transmitted. One is unprotected vaginal, anal, or oral sex. I assume the students are not having unprotected sex, sharing needles for injection, drug use, which, again, I assume they don't have the students doing, and the others are breastfeeding or through a blood transfusion. I don't think that's going on in the school. And for them to discriminate against this young man is reprehensible. And how is it that they are not teaching the other students in the school about how HIV is transmitted and things like how to protect yourself from contracting HIV, how to make sure others don't contract HIV. If the children there are sexually active, it's not just about HIV, it's about HPV and other transmittable diseases. If there is injection drug use going on, they certainly should be doing things to deter and to get kids into treatment. I can't imagine how, I keep saying I can't imagine. Listen, even in the New York State Senate, there is just ignorance and misunderstanding about HIV. And I just want to tell one other quick story. One in Albany just a few years ago, the Extreme Home Renovation television show was on, and one of the things that they did was build a swimming pool, which seemed odd. Why would you build a swimming pool in Albany where the summer season is very short? It's in the snow belt. And the reason was there was a mom who had foster kids and adopted children, a couple of which were living with HIV, and they weren't allowed to use the town pool.
Wow.
So that's why they built a pool for the children.
Wow.
So in this day and age, there is just horrendous stigma and discrimination and
Tom,
just a complete lack of information.
There's even another level to this ignorance that we're seeing here, which is that we live in a time now when HIV is a highly treatable chronic condition where the viral load, the amount of virus circulating in a patient's blood can be suppressed so low that even with intimate contact, they're barely infectious. So there's a whole other level of ignorance going on here.
Yes. And they should be using, if the kids are sexually active, they should absolutely be using protection.
Listen, I agree.
The drugs have kept me alive.
Yeah.
I've been positive since pre-1983. I went on the drugs just a few years ago. They're keeping me alive. They are much less toxic now than they used to be. You know, I disclosed my HIV status to the world just a few months before Magic Johnson disclosed his HIV status. They banned him from playing professional sports, basically, which was completely ridiculous because, again, what is this, having sex with the other team? Is he breastfeeding? I mean, it's just absurd. And yet, how many years later is this?
That's right.
And still, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is a rather sophisticated small city, in a school which is teaching children, I am assuming science, they are perpetrating misinformation and allowing stigma.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, Tom.
Terrible.
And if they have a problem with unrestrained sexual activity or injection drug use, that's the problem that needs to be addressed, not the kid with the HIV.
Yes.
Now, we actually invited the Milton Hershey School to participate in tonight's discussion. They declined. However, a spokesperson for the school recently spoke to Anderson Cooper on CNN. Watch this.
The key issue for us comes down to sexual activity. We know that teenagers nationwide are a significant number are sexually active. Our students are no different than any other teenagers. And on our campus, in our unique controlled environment, they are, if one of our students is engaging in sexual activity, the odds are it's with another of our students. And we have parental responsibility for all of those children.
Rhonda, does the school have a legitimate defense in fearing the spread of HIV? And by the way, I imagine, Rhonda, they still have the same concern right now with the spread of HIV. At least with an identified patient who is known to have HIV, they can have a strategy around containing that. If these kids are having unrestrained sexual activity on that campus, they've got a bigger problem.
They absolutely don't have a defense. I mean, the medicine, the law is clear that you can't segregate out kids simply because they have HIV. Kids can go to school with other kids. Kids can go to camp with other kids. The idea that there's something unique about the Hershey School, which is a fine, prestigious school, and we're all surprised by their behavior in this matter, but the idea that the Milton Hershey School thinks that the risk somehow changes after dark is really absurd.
Well, and if it does, shouldn't they come up with some sort of a strategy for managing that? Because they've got a bigger problem than one kid, because they have an unknown source of multiple STDs then that may be making its way through that campus.
I would hope that the Milton Hershey School, like all schools, are teaching their student body about HIV and how it's transmitted and how to be safe, and that they're supervising all those children on how to be safe in all kinds of activities. They can't simply point to this one boy and say, this is a risk that's just too great and we can't figure out how to deal with this.
The controversy surrounding students with HIV is, of course, no stranger in the national headlines. Ryan White contracted HIV from a blood transfusion 30 years ago. His mother, Jeannie White Ginder, I think her name is pronounced, recently talked to CNN. Watch this.
I hear it all the time that people with AIDS are still being discriminated against, especially in schools, colleges, job-related, areas. It's just really sad that people do not educate themselves. But there's some people you're never going to be able to educate, and then that's where you have to just move on. You have to move on to people that will listen and will get the information and abide by it.
Ryan White died in